talking about Chapter 16 and monopolistic competition. How many examples of these? Y'all just call them out. So here in Waco.
Berries.
Say again?
Berries.
Bear, beep. Is that A?
A-R-I-S.
Oh yeah, bears. Okay.
Chips.
Wait, do these only have to be in Waco? Like they can only be in Waco?
Yeah, let's just start with Waco.
Meaning like McDonald's is not only Waco.
Oh no, places that, or restaurant choices that we have here in Waco that we can go to.
McDonald's, Burger King.
Just want to say Jen's, I put McDonald's,
KFC, Red Lobster.
Burger King, Red Lobster,
Detox.
Detox,
VTech.
Greenies, VTEX,
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
Cane's. Betters.
Just go down the street.
We
Let's
can
go down straight line, yes.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Chuck E. Cheese. Don't think of other, think of smaller ones like Detox.
Schmaltz.
Clay pie.
Clay pot, yeah.
Okay.
Dave's Burger Barn.
I spelled that wrong.
Coffee shop. What's it? Cafe cappuccino.
Okay, cafe, cappuccino.
Milk can.
Wait, what? What was that?
What?
Tom's? Okay. Some of these are bigger than others, right? Chewy's, we didn't have that on here, but Chick-fil-A, Cheddar's, Kansas are chain restaurants. You can think of those as Alex and Devin and Crazy. They were bigger, they have a larger corporate office, brand names already been established, people know those. But you're not going to know about Schmaltz or Detox or Clay Pot unless you're here in town, right? Those are more local and they're just a little bit smaller, but we have lots and lots of restaurants. You go on the south, there are lots of little like taco stands or places that were taco stands and now have just turned into, we've got lots of little taqueria places around town. So you can see that we have some big ones and some small ones too. Let's just do that with one more. Bookstores.
Books A Million.
Okay, big ones in town. Okay, Books A Million. Are they?
I think they're didn't they?
No, they're still open.
Still open for now?
Yeah, I mean, they're out closing, but they're still.
Okay. Other
Barnes
big.
and Noble.
Barnes and Noble.
Hastings.
Okay, Hastings.
Do they have half price bookstore?
Not here.
I think those are big money, yeah.
Don't think of little ones. Don't think of other places. Not big bookstores that sell books. Where else can you buy books from?
Downstairs.
Okay. Where else?
Taylor. Yeah.
Goodwill.
Target. Still can buy me.
Walmart. Walgreens.
H-E-B.
Dollar Tree.
No, yeah. Use some of the best books there, right?
How many of you have sold your book? Maybe to a friend? Online? Okay, y'all are booksellers too. So y'all see what we're talking about here with monopolistic competition. We've got some big players, so we have some elements of monopoly, some bigger players, but lots and lots of little ones. Are there any barriers to entry? Is there anything that's going to stop you, any licensing that you have to do to sell your book to someone else? No, it's very easy for you to enter the market. And so in the long run, we had so many rounds. At first, what we would tend to see is that with monopolistic competition, the price is a little bit higher than we would see with just pure, perfect competition. But in the very long run, because there are no barriers to entry, we're going to start to see this turn into a more and more competitive market. And so it's very interesting that we got a price that was actually lower than what we had to start out with. Okay, so thank you for your participation and good ideas for our examples here. so we've got two models of imperfect competition. Imperfect competition. So at the two extremes are perfectly competitive markets and monopoly. And so we're in the middle here, and there are two in the middle. We'll talk about oligopolies next time, but we're going to talk about monopolistic competition today. So it's got elements of both. We have some big players, but a lot of little players. So we still have a lot of competition here. Now here are the characteristics that we have to remember with this market structure. Lots of sellers. Some might be bigger than others. We've got some chain restaurants, but some little mom and pop restaurants too here in town. Hey, the important thing to remember here is that there are so many that it's very hard for them to collude. And collude means to get together and agree on a price. We have so many restaurants here in town. We could have kept going with our list. I was running out of space on my paper. It's very hard for them to coordinate and say, hey, let's all agree to Bush's, everybody, we're going to not charge less than $20 for lunch for anybody here in town. Well, there's so many. If there was one restaurant here in town, maybe they could do that, or two, or three, or four. If they could agree on that, by the way, it's illegal in our country, but theoretically, if there's just a few, then they could agree. But with as many restaurants as we have, there's no way that they could, agree on that by themselves. Product differentiation. And this is going to be really important. We haven't seen this before in either monopoly or perfect competition. Remember, with perfect competition, it was a standardized, homogeneous product, easy to copy. With monopoly, it was a unique product. So here, it could be, it's similar, but not identical. Fast food, Burger King, similar to McDonald's, but not identical. Cane's is similar to Bush's, but not identical, right? And so when you have firms in this market structure, they work really, really hard to say that it's different. So Raising Cane's may say we've got this special sauce, and then Bush's might say, well, we carry, the fried ogre that no one else does. So they try really hard to say this is different, and we've got this special lemonade. So whatever differentiates them, they're similar products but not identical. They're not price takers if they can convince consumers that their product is a little bit different. They're still constrained by a downward sloping demand curve, just like we saw with monopoly. And then with characteristic number 3, there is free entry and exit. And there's no one to stop you from opening your own restaurant or opening your own bookstore. As long as you follow the rules for the restaurant, probably more rules for handling food than there is selling books. But in the very, very long run, if there are no barriers to entry and anybody can come in and copy what we're doing, in theory, just like with competitive markets, there will be zero profit in the long run. Figure 1 just shows a nice overview of these 4 different types of market structure. So like I said, monopolistic competition is right here in the middle. I have these in different order than, or they have them in different order like I had here, but these are our extremes. Oops. And the monopolistic competition is right here in the middle. But for any firm, in any market structure that we talk about, remember our golden rule of profit maximization. They're going to produce at the quantity where marginal revenue equals marginal cost and go up to the demand curve to find the price. So it's similar to monopolies in that we have to go all the way up to the demand curve. And then you can compare. If that price of their product is greater than the typical total cost of producing that one item, then they're making a profit. And then if it's less than the average total cost, it's a loss. So just like before. Here's a monopolistically competitive firm making a profit. And y'all already know this. You find where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, that's the profit maximizing quantity. How much are they going to charge for their product? Go all the way up to the demand curve, all the all the way up to the blue, go straight over, and that's the price that they're going to charge. So just like we did for monopolies, this is the same thing. Now at this quantity, what are our total costs? It'll be right there. And so anything above that graphically would be our profit. On panel B of figure 2, we've got marginal cost and marginal revenue being equal right here. We would go down to find the quantity that they would produce at. But what price are they going to charge? It's right here. So at marginal cost equals marginal revenue, you go up to demand. That's the price that they're going to charge, but where are their costs? Way up here at this quantity. So you can see that this rectangle represents their loss. And so as long as the average total cost curve is down here, see, you can see it's way over here on panel B. As long as the price covers the average total cost, then they're in good shape. Just like competitive firms, short-run profits of competitors entice other competitors to come in and enter the market. So once they do that, once we talked about frozen yogurt, or we just had Bush's here in town, then we had Cane's come in with fried chicken strips. So that increases the number of products and takes away some of the customers. So when Cane's came in to town, it took away some of people who would have normally just wanted Bush's and reduces the demand faced by each firm. And so that's going to keep happening in the very long run. In theory, we'll have more and more competitors come in, and until there's zero economic profit. Remember, economic profit takes into account explicit and implicit costs. So long run equilibrium, in theory, those firms that are going to be here in Waco are just indifferent, just as better off staying in business versus leaving. That's what we mean with zero economic profit.
How complicated is it to determine that formula? In other words, how would I know, for example, that we're saturated with chicken joints in a market?
You're looking at the sales if they're not making any.
No, like before I actually invest in building a building and frying chicken, I mean, how would I walk into a market and say, like for example, if I walk into Richland Mall there, the one thing I'm not going to do is start a shoe store because there's too many shoe stores in there. I mean, I can tell that instantaneously. But anything else other than an obvious large capacity?
I think if you talk to a marketing professor, they would probably know better than me. But think of your target market. So if you were serving 18 to 22-year-olds, I'm just giving you an example. So college students, and then look at, are you going to get more of those students here in town, or are they leaving for whatever reason? And then look at their get some numbers on those sales. And
So it's not easy, basically, you've got to do a lot of research. Okay.
Yeah, but you can look at some numbers and make an educated guess there. All right, so this is in the long run. Here's our price, just equaling average total cost. And that's talking about an example of zero economic profit there. Again, going back, it's because there are no barriers to entry in this market structure. It's very easy for competitors to come in. That's why we would see this. So it's similar to regular competition, this part of the slide, but it's more similar. A monopolistically competitive firm is more similar to a monopoly when we're talking about the price, because price is going to be a little bit higher. And there's going to be a markup over the marginal cost of the product. Yeah, Kristen?
Can you say that really fast?
Oh, sure. Number 8. Okay. Okay, back to slide 11. So, since they're going to have a markup, there's going to be some excess capacity. That means they could have produced more for a lower price like we would have seen in a perfectly competitive market. But they're going to shrink the market just a little bit because they have some control over the price. If they can convince their customers that we're a little bit different, we're a little bit better than the competition. So with perfect competition, we would have seen a more efficient outcome, but with monopolistic competition, here I'll show you on figure 4. Where does marginal cost equal marginal revenue? Right here. So this is the amount that a monopolistically competitive firm would produce. What price are they going to charge? They're going to go all the way up to the demand curve. And so there's a markup there. If we had a perfectly competitive firm, remember they're price takers, here's where marginal cost equals marginal revenue at that black dot right there on panel D. That's the quantity that we would produce at this price. And so you can see, comparatively speaking, you see higher prices and fewer quantity produced versus a competitive market, a firm in a competitive market. Well, is this outcome desirable in terms of, a standpoint of looking at society as a whole? Do we want to promote more competition because then we would see lower prices and more product sold? And so there is going to be some deadweight loss if we have some markup of the price there. And we've got two external effects every time we have a new firm entering this monopolistically competitive market. Well, it's bad for the existing suppliers and companies because they're going to be stealing business away. But is it good for consumers to have different choices? We've got lots and lots of choices of places to eat in Waco. The new places are opening up all the time. So there's some good and there's some bad also. So, all we can say as a whole is that as a society, we're not as good off in terms of the price of the product. With a perfectly competitive market, more people could have bought the item for a cheaper price, but sometimes it's hard to measure how much consumers value variety and other items and having a choice. And if they're willing to pay more for that product, then that's worth it to them to have more of a variety. All right, let's stop right there and take a break, and then we'll finish our slides.